Do you remember a little girl who passed away last Friday? They say they don't have her. I'm trying to figure out what to tell the mother.
I don't want any trouble. I just need to know what happened.
They can't help you.
Birth/rebirth. In this tumultuous time of American holidays and everything going on and being so incredibly busy I can't get to a theater, I was able to catch up a little bit on my backlog on Shudder, of which there is a lot because movies keep coming and I have a life that I can't spend watching movies 24/7. I wish I could, but I cannot. Anyway, I found this lovely little gem of a low-budget character study, and it's fantastic if you're into that. I know, I'm missing some of the larger releases this year, so right now, but these smaller films are just as important and just as fun to check out, and that's where we end up today with this little number. Kind of working off one of the last Shudder movies I watched, being The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. This one is also somewhat of an adaptation of the Frankenstein story, but in a very, very unique way that isn't focused on race, more so ethical questions in general. I'll get into that. This isn't really a horror movie per se. There isn't any real horror elements outside of a zombie child and pig and images of cadavers and organs, but is instead a slow burn thriller character study centered around two very different women trying to get the same goal achieved. The story follows a single mother OBGYN nurse named Sally. When her young daughter Leela dies due to a bacterial infection, Sally develops a strained relationship with a hospital pathologist, Dr. Rose, who seems to have an experimental procedure to bring Leela back from the dead, forcing the two women to lean on each other's expertise in order to keep the girl alive. On the surface, it is a very interesting take on a mashup of mother's love and mad scientist stories, and also an exploration of what generally good people may do when pushed to desperate measures. But I found if you peer a bit further inside this story and stick around, you'll find several different commentaries just under the surface here, and I love that. It explores how people view ethically gray procedures and bodily autonomy, such as abortions, childcare, single parents, and same-sex relationships, while also exploring more abstract concepts like, what about the patient say in this? What if they can't communicate effectively? Does the parent get to have final say in everything? It's a lot more abstract and it doesn't have much of a concrete moral. More so, the idea is to make the viewer be shocked and think just a little bit harder about the situation, even though it is a fantastical situation. They try to say, oh, it's rooted in science, but come on, you're bringing dead people and animals back to life. This is fantasy. And it makes you think more about whether these women are doing good, if the child should even be saved, and what lengths the mother should be comfortable going to and where the line needs to be drawn. All the while exploring both of these very, very different women's lives. Dr. Rose, played fantastically by Marin Ireland, is an odd person on all accounts. She's quiet, seemingly conniving, and yet extremely smart, tenacious, caring, and even deeper down, scared and unsure of herself despite her talents. There's a lot into her backstory that you kind of explore a little bit in this movie, but there's a lot left up to interpretation, and I really, really like that. Ireland does such a fantastic job with her, showing how she's feeling in subtle ways and giving her wonderful little twitches and mannerisms that just make her such an interesting character to watch, even if she is pulling organs out of cadavers and tricking people so her experiments aren't discovered. It's obvious what she's doing is because she feels it's a benefit to the world, not her own gain, and for science in general. She's just someone who really, really enjoys science and learning more and more, and to prove that this is something that can be done. It's wonderful. In contrast, you have Nurse Sally Morales, played by Judy Reyes, who you might recognize as Carla from Scrubs. Who remembers Scrubs? surprise, surprise, she's fantastic in this serious role as well. She plays Sally so well too, not only as a foil for Dr. Rose, but as an exploration of her character as well. Her conviction to her daughter from the devastation of the initial loss, to immediate gung-ho on the experiment to bring her back, to everything in between and then some. It's performed so well and so strongly that you absolutely have to commend her for it, even as she gets increasingly desperate. And there are times she clearly doubts herself and the procedure and gets angry and lashes out and everything else about just everything. If I go more into it, I'd be spoiling it, but it's all wonderfully and believably portrayed. It's some real fantastic work. All the credit to both of these wonderful actresses. Seriously, this job cannot be understated. It's just so good on both accounts, especially when they're working off of each other. They have a very weird but very believable and accepting chemistry between the two. Seriously great work just all around. Nobody in this is a bad actor at all. Even Leela herself, played by little AJ Lister. She has to play the Frankenstein's monster after all, and it comes off as both believable as far as a Frankenstein child can be, and frustrating. She generally doesn't have much in terms of emotions, but is able to convey a lot through her grunts, tiny actions, and stares. That's a big part of this movie, is her reactions to things as the experiments are ongoing, and even before then. She's a big part of the more concealed commentary after all. There is one scene in particular that's shot through her POV, and for me, it drives home that commentary. It is perfect, and it's only a few seconds long, I believe. It's really, really good. This is a film that will definitely force you to sit back and question where the line needs to be drawn in the situation. When does it get crossed? What's okay and what isn't? When is it good to stop? When should it stop? How far can it go? Are there alternatives? What if nobody gets hurt? Is that fine? When is it good to continue? When is it good to keep going? I love films that explore this, and it's so rare to see it tackled in such an effective manner. This was directed by Laura Moss and is actually her debut movie outside of various shorts, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic debut. She did a great job with these actors and the story as a whole, and I am very much looking forward to seeing what else she has in store, especially if it's art house or indie. It's just really, really interesting, especially since this is a low budget piece being made for just under $140K. That's ridiculous for a lot of movies, but it just works so well here. I think the minimal cast works to make this. This is mostly a female-led cast as well. There's very, very rarely a male character, and they're not very important at all besides maybe Rose's coworker. It's still really good. As much as I've been gushing about this film, though, I will admit that it isn't perfect and it does stumble in a couple areas. The final act does feel a little rushed, and character decisions are more than a little questionable, but I don't think that it detracts from the film too bad. It's definitely noticeable and needs to be pointed out, at least for me. It also does have a rather abrupt ending that I can see pissing off more casual viewers who aren't trying to piece together the commentary here, but then the movie really isn't for them, is it? This is a movie to make you think, and if you're not willing to do that, what's the point? It's all in service to the messages present. Other than that, the cinematography is just serviceable. There's nothing too interesting done with the camera or viewing angles outside of one or two scenes that I think they cropped just not to show too much nudity or violence, which it's just okay. It's nothing particularly memorable or stand out, which honestly is a bit of a shame. I feel like there could have been a little more creativity thrown in with some shots, like say a potentially bloody transition from the hospital to the apartment, or a tracking shot here or there. Like, hey, maybe you're following Dr. Rose as she's pulling organs out of a cadaver only to exit the autopsy room and immediately enter into the apartment to work on the experiment, and then back back into it. Maybe something like that, or a tracking shot here or there following the women through the apartment as time goes on. That might have been cool. Otherwise, there's really not a lot I can complain about here, just things I wish it had. Overall, I think this is an extremely solid movie that uses a minimal budget and some fantastic actresses to nail home its messages, both obvious and hidden. I say definitely give this a watch, even if you're just wondering what Carla from Scrubs has been up to lately. You can watch this on Shudder, AMC Plus, YouTube, and Amazon Prime. This definitely deserves your attention. There's a reason both critics and audiences are liking it on Rotten Tomatoes. Ultimately, Birth/Rebirth gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for another one. I watched a few movies on Shudder, some of which I'm not going to review just because I feel like I don't have a lot to say. The last one I watched actually was The Vigil, which surprisingly is a Jewish horror movie about a man who lost his faith and is hired to be a shomer for a recently deceased guy. That is essentially a Jewish tradition where someone watches over the body and recites psalms to calm it and protect it from evil spirits, finds out that there's potentially something evil in the house, and that movie is just okay. It's not great. It just has an interesting premise and an interesting culture surrounding it, but that's about it. There's nothing really noteworthy to talk about besides that. So that's my review here. Quick review, 2 for 1. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's okay. It's serviceable. It's not bad. It's just okay. Anyway, we have a lot of other interesting movies coming out this month as well that I hope to check out, Godzilla Minus One being them. Ooh, I'm so excited for that. I'll review whatever movies I watch and put them on here. Let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Definitely check it out if you haven't. And then yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you never miss a video. My socials are down there in the corner if you want to follow me. And that's it. Have a great day, and if you're not, have a better one. See ya.
I'm just a ghost in your stereo, the fading memory of a shipwreck in the undertow. You're just a lost soul, and I'm just a ghost in your stereo.